Since 1957, the release date of Sidney Lumet's debut film 12 Angry Men, a man landed on the moon, the internet was created, and the world population rose by more than 4.9 billion. Yet, 12 Angry Men still has one of the greatest screenplays of all time.
Now, wait a minute. You can't talk like that to me.
I feel sorry for you. What it must feel like to want to pull the switch.
Guilty or not guilty?
I told you. Not guilty.
Why?
12 Angry Men is a dialogue-heavy, black and white film that takes place almost entirely within the confines of one room. It follows 12 men of the jury as they argue over the life of an 18-year-old boy who was charged with the first-degree murder of his father. A unanimous vote of guilty would send him to the electric chair. A unanimous vote of not guilty would set him free. 11 men proclaimed the boy guilty.
Okay, that's 11 guilty. Who's voting not guilty? 1.
And only one not guilty. The men argue, insult, and reason with one another until by the end of the movie, every vote changes to not guilty, as they realize the case is not as clear-cut as it seemed. Written by Reginald Rose and initially broadcasted as a television play in 1954, the script was left virtually unchanged for its feature film adaptation 3 years later. The title gives the impression that each character would be indistinguishable, and if you looked at each angry man without having seen the film, it certainly might be hard to differentiate one from the other. But despite the large cast, each character's personality is so distinct, it'd be hard to mix them up. The tired gun on the wall mantra, if a gun is on the wall in Act 1, it must be fired by Act 3, is used to its full effect, subtly planting seeds that explode into full-blown trees of narrative epiphany. But the perfect script isn't enough. This is immediately evident when we compare the original teleplay to the 1957 movie.
Oh, I'm just saying it's possible the boy lost his knife and that somebody else stabbed his father with a similar knife. It's just possible.
No, I'm just saying that it's possible that the boy lost a knife and that somebody else stabbed his father with a similar knife. I just say it's possible.
And I say it's not possible.
And I say it's not possible.
Where did that come from?
Look at it. It's the same knife.
Keep in mind that the script for both of these is nearly the same, the key difference being in the presentation of the information. With almost the same script, one of them is so much more engaging than the other. But why? The movie hits its beats so much harder than the teleplay because every story beat is presented in a clear, meaningful manner, making the audience feel like an active participant in the room. We can see this just by comparing the scene we just saw.
Oh, I'm just saying it's possible the boy lost his knife and that somebody else stabbed his father with a similar knife. It's just possible.
Since juror number 8 starts at a disadvantage, he is shot from a downward angle, taking the power away from him and giving it to juror number 4, who has the upper hand in their argument. In the teleplay, it's shot in a plain medium shot. This simply doesn't give us anything to feel, nothing to grab onto. It's just a medium shot. In the film, when juror number 3 says,
And I say it's not possible.
the movie has him enter the frame, that is then dominated by the 2 jurors, making the shot much more powerful and intimidating towards juror number 8. In the teleplay, this is set off screen.
And I say it's not possible.
Which, as well as not having as much emotional power against juror number 8, doesn't even show us who said it, which makes the teleplay a little less clear and a little more confusing. When juror number 8 reveals the knife in the film, first he pauses, building the drama, then he gets up, towering over the frame, and bam! The camera moves down as the knife is placed. The statement is made, and we, the audience, can clearly see that both of the knives are identical. Now, since the power is shifted to juror number 8, the camera moves back up. In the teleplay, the knife reveal is done with ambiguity. Juror number 8 slams the knife on the table, and instead of clearly seeing, as the jurors do in the film, that the knives are the same, we pull back from the action. And then, instead of being shown, we are told that they are the same.
Look at it. It's the same knife.
Breaking the immortal rule of the moving picture. Show, don't tell. To make a great film, you must take full advantage of the form, the editing, the production design, the cinematography, the performance, and on and on and on. 12 Angry Men serves as a fantastic example of how script can be perfectly adapted to the screen, showing how you can't simply rely on the information alone.
If one simply made the camera work a part of what the piece was about, emotionally and subjectively, it didn't seem to me to be a problem, and it didn't turn out to be. I never had to force anything. I never had to look for fancy angles.
As Sidney Lumet said, to make the screenplay the best it could possibly be, the camera work had to be a subjective and emotional part of the film, and not just in individual moments, but the film as a whole. The two adaptations have very different beginnings. The play starts with an impressive tracking shot. The judge reads out the details of the case as we are introduced to each character.
Then you must declare him not guilty. If, however, there is no reasonable doubt, then he must be found guilty.
The movie has a similar shot accomplishing the same thing.
A reasonable doubt. Then you must bring me a verdict of not guilty.
But this isn't the beginning. The movie doesn't even start in the building where the action takes place, but it rather surveys the building from the outside. As it moves inside, the camera puts its focus on the environment, following ordinary people as they wait, go to their jobs, or celebrate a successful trial. The camera continues on until it stumbles upon the courtroom where the exposition is being delivered.
Continue. You've listened to a long and complex case, murder in the first degree.
This scene could be interpreted as a bunch of useless filler shots to establish the location, but they are essential in developing one of the central messages of the film. The idea that all that comes later could take place on an ordinary day, the life of a man argued over by ordinary people, in just another room, in just another building. This shot now becomes an observation of all these average men faced with such a grave responsibility.
Supposing we're wrong. Supposing this whole building should fall down on my head, you can suppose anything.
That's right.
In 12 Angry Men, everything has purpose, both on a surface character-driven level and a deeper story-driven level. The teleplay has a lot of movement, which is great because it gives life to the screen and keeps things interesting. But when the camera and characters move, it lacks motivation. Many times when they get up to say something, the only reason why they're getting up is to say something. In the film, characters move because they personally want to move. Maybe they're getting a cough drop or a new handkerchief, or they're just pissed off and they want to make a point. This movement, or blocking, also exists to accommodate later compositions. For example, after juror number 3 gets a cough drop, he hangs around the back, making for a more interesting composition in this moment. And later, he even retorts to juror number 2 in the same frame as juror number 8, who, not so coincidentally, is juror number 2's main antagonist. The choreography was mapped out in a 2-week rehearsal period that Sidney Lumet figured out with the actors and the cinematographer before shooting. This intense planning is the principal reason why the film is so purposeful. What differentiates the teleplay and the movie the most is that in the movie everything is clear. Firstly, each angry man has a unique appearance, voice.
Nobody seeks his advice after 75 years.
I've played in backyards that were filled with garbage.
2, if he did hear it, he may not have connected it with his own act.
I just think he's guilty. I thought it was obvious from the word go.
And personality that is easily recognized. It's also very easy to follow the story because the camera work exists only to present it plainly and elevate it. Instead of the one-room setting being a detriment, it was an asset in making the film even more tense and claustrophobic, keeping the action contained in the room. But how do you make the movie more claustrophobic and tense as it goes on? You get lower, closer, darker, faster. Make every little piece of the movie, including cinematography, editing, sound, and performance, contribute. So that's what they did. Gradually, the film goes from wide to tight, using more and more close-ups and tighter focal lengths, as if the camera gradually traps the audience more and more, along with the characters. From high to low, being way above the actors, unjudging and unknowing of who they are, to a neutral level, in the action with them, to a low, dramatic, formidable angle. This has a similar effect to getting tighter and tighter. It also makes every performance look more dramatic. With more and more intense, harsh lighting, as the environment gets darker as time passes and a storm rages outside, enhancing the drama in each shot with the deep shadows. Faster cuts, The last 20 minutes of the movie contain more than half of all the cuts in the film. This ups the anxiety and the pacing. And more rain.
Time. 1. The boy admitted going out of the house at 8 o'clock on the night of emotional stress.
He remembered them correctly in court. He named the pictures and the stars who played in them.
That we can see out of the window and hear, as if the rain is bearing down on the group, waiting for their decision. To increase the tension, the sound of rain, as well as the sound of the fan, which is now on, is used.
Had marks on her nose. I'm giving you that. From glasses, right?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
As well as heat, shown by the men sweating more intensely and taking off their jackets, reflecting their emotional states and the tension. All of this pulls us closer and closer to the dialogue and makes us feel trapped with these characters, making the physical performances of the actors and the content of the dialogue they are delivering the main and only attraction, not drawing attention with any fancy angles or editing techniques. Just like the other parts of the film, the composition always presents the information in a subjective and emotional manner. Cinematographer Boris Kaufman uses tight compositions, packing many characters together in a frame where we can still clearly see the expression on each character's face. Many times, a deeper meaning can be found in the composition, such as here, when the last 3 members of a jury who insist on guilty are framed together. Then, the reverse shot shows the flip side of the argument. The first 2 men who decided the defendant was not guilty. By the end of the movie, we are treated to a final cathartic release. The tension is dispelled. The jury has decided on a unanimous verdict of not guilty. We are once again outside of the jury room in a freeing wide shot, up high in the sky, with no harsh shadows. An uncut 34-second take, where we can see the rain has stopped as each juror once again becomes an unrecognizable face in the crowd. Reginald Rose wrote a brilliant script tackling human interaction, ignorance, mob opinion, and prejudice in a way that was rare for the 1950s and still resounds today. Comparing the teleplay to the film shows us that having the perfect script isn't enough. By using the camera, as well as every other part of the production as a subjective, interpretive part of the screenplay, every moment can hit with its full potential, and the film as a whole can be as tense and claustrophobic as possible. If you haven't already seen this movie, then what are you waiting for, dude? It says a lot that it's on practically every top 100 movie lists of all time, and it was released in the 1950s. Take those 2 pieces of testimony together, and you've got yourself a movie you need to watch. Alright, seriously, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Oh, shit. Okay. Since 1957.